Hi folks. I want to spend a few minutes talking with you about an approach to the argument that has several uses. One, it can help us to understand an argument we read. Two, it can help us to organize and focus our arguments. And three, it helps us to revise our papers. Developed in the 1940s by the rhetorician Kenneth Burke, the pentad is part of an approach to writing and speaking called dramatic rhetoric. Burke's warrant is that arguments are very similar to narratives. In fact, they are so similar that we can transpose the significant features of drama into discussions about argument and benefit from the comparison. Burke's theory holds that there are 5 features, hence pentad, that are particularly useful when analyzing an argument. Let's take the features one at a time and define each. Then we'll consider how these apply to a simple argument. 1. Act. The act refers to what happened. You might think of it as the bare facts of the case. 2. Setting. Setting refers to where the action occurred. It can refer to time and place, and also to another relevant context. For instance, if an argument is a response to some other argument, that context would be part of the setting. 3. Agent. The agent refers to who acted. This can be a person, a group, an institution. 4. Agency. Agency refers to the means by which the agent performed the act. 5. Purpose. The purpose refers to the agent's goals or intentions in performing the act. With these definitions in hand, consider the following simple argument. George should pay to have Sally's car repaired because last Tuesday after class he crashed into her car while he was paying more attention to texting on his phone than to driving his car. Starting at the top. Act. The act is that George crashed his car into Sally's. Setting. The setting is last Tuesday after class, presumably on the road or in a parking lot. Agent. The agent is George. Agency. The agency is distracted driving. Purpose. The purpose is that it was an accident. There was no real purpose. While mapping elements of the argument to terms from the pentad is useful, the more significant benefits of the pentad come after we've completed the map. Let's begin with how the pentad helps us to understand an argument. An easy way to illustrate this point is to think of the argument not as a list of items, but a series of connections in a plane. Looked at this way, it may be easier to see the connections between the elements and to identify which of those features are being emphasized. In my argument that George owes Sally money, we are probably focusing on agent and the act. But if we shift the elements of the pentad we focus on, we can end up with a different argument. For instance, if we are George, we might want to focus on purpose and setting to point out that what he did was not malicious, and that since it was after class, Sally may have been distracted too. The facility with which the pentad allows us to consider other interpretations of the same event and to see those interpretations as largely a matter of perspective remains one of the pentad's most enduring benefits. For instance, one way to approach writing an argument is to consider which elements of the pentad you are going to emphasize. And if you've already thought about the discipline a bit, you've probably already noticed which elements of the pentad that discipline emphasizes. Purpose, for instance, and the act are especially significant in the law. In literature, we care quite a bit about agency, act, and setting, but little about agent or purpose. And almost the same point applies to the benefit of the pentad in revision. Revision becomes a process of shifting the emphasis from one part of the pentad to another based on what your audience values. The pentad can also serve as a sort of checklist to help you make sure you've integrated all the relevant pieces into your argument. As you've probably gathered, rhetorical frameworks like the pentad require a little practice to use effectively. But authors who put in that effort end up with a powerful and flexible tool that helps to address some of the more challenging and common parts of the writing process. Analyzing others' arguments, deciding where to focus yours, and finding productive ways to revise. I hope you found this useful and that you'll reach out with any questions you have. Have a great day.